very simply, which is that Aaron Rodgers is a deity. I mean, he is. We really do not belong walking on the same earth as he does. That was my primary takeaway.
Welcome everyone to the more calm, reserved,
Reserved,
totally reserved getup. I'm on 2 hours of sleep because I stayed up and watched Hard Knocks.
2 hours more than me.
Because I knew that I was going to be quizzed. What I do love about what I saw was that everything we wondered about Aaron, would he be all in? Does he care? It seemed like a different Aaron than what we saw in Green Bay. And watching it, I thought, this is what Zach Wilson actually needed. An adult in the room. Like he needed a vet QB to literally show him the ropes. And now I actually have confidence that Zach Wilson can be the next guy because Aaron Rodgers is there, because he's literally watching his idol take over. But I love Aaron Rodgers with the individual handshakes with different guys. Aaron Rodgers literally has his big brother who he clowns around with in Nathaniel Hackett. You love that relationship. And Aaron clearly needs this team. He needs these young guys. As much as they crack on him for being old, I think he needs them as much as they need him, walking around like, that's Aaron Rodgers, y'all.
Booger, what'd you take away from it last night?
I just love the fact that he seems happy, man. I mean, if you think about Aaron Rodgers the last several years in Green Bay, all the offseason turmoil, like he genuinely seemed happy to be on the practice field, talking to coaches, talking about football, joking with his teammates. For so long, we talked about so many things that didn't matter when it came to football with Aaron Rodgers. It was just fun to see him smile last night. And it parallels so much when Tom Brady came to Tampa. Just the feeling you got watching Tom be in charge, being an organization that really wanted him, that's the overall feeling I took. And if Aaron Rodgers feels happy, Greeny, dare I say, he can return to MVP form that he was just a couple of years ago. So if you're a Jet fan like our host today, you got to be extremely excited because he looks to be in a good spot mentally.
Neek, how about you?
I don't know, maybe I'm just a sucker, but it feels like the magic of quality filmmaking is like I fell in love with the Jets team. The same thing happened to me last year with the Lions. Like I'm a sucker for Hard Knocks. I don't know why I guess I do know because football coaches are antiquated and stubborn old people, but I don't know why they don't welcome Hard Knocks in because it always kind of paints them in a good light. Like I feel more confident about Robert Saleh. They had me liking Zach Wilson by the end of the show. Like that stuff is magical. Why do people not want to do hard knocks? And Aaron Rodgers seemed as cool as we used to think he was. He seems that way again. After all the stuff that he's been doing last offseason and through the pandemic and how he annoyed all of us, it just took an hour on Hard Knocks for me to be like, I like that guy. I'm rooting for him. I hope it works out. It seems that his team loves him. So, I mean, coaches should be lining up to get their teams on Hard Knocks in the future.
I agree. No, the whole story that Saleh told at the beginning about the eagle
crows?
and the crow and everything else.
Crows.
Pat McAfee, watching last night, tweeted, the Jets are going to win the Super Bowl. That's our buddy McAfee, Kmart. What do you think of that?
McAfee just wants to get in good with you, Greeny. That's why he's saying that.
Not me. It's Aaron. He's got the best relationship in the business. That's infinitely more valuable than being my friend. You guys are all trying to be my friend. He's hanging out with Aaron.
But you know what's crazy? Watching that team, you see the potential. And especially as somebody who has covered this team, has covered the litany of quarterbacks that have come through Florham Park, you see how different, like I can speak to the vibe being different. The practices look different. It is different. You saw their DC, Jeff Ulbrich, say, the defense is watching Aaron and the offense. And it's like, that's our quarterback. Like, that's a different thing. Garrett Wilson and Sauce, tremendous players in their own right, despite being young. But when you add Aaron Rodgers, they have belief in themselves, but now they understand that we will be in every game. That is a completely different mindset for the Jets walking into Buffalo, walking into Dallas, or walking into any of these stadiums and saying, we're about to get a W because of 8.
You know, when all the attention is on the interceptions, is that just a bad day or is that a bad sign?
I mean, I think it's a good day and a good sign, honestly. Like, we think that the Cowboys' chances of winning the Super Bowl is largely based on how good that defense can be. That defense can turn over one of the best quarterbacks in the league 3 times in practice. They should be optimistic. Let's not be absurd. No one's actually concerned about Dak Prescott after 3 interceptions. He's had multiple years of low interceptions. He had 1 year of high interceptions, and he had 1 practice of a lot of interceptions. Let's not get crazy about that. Let's get crazy about that defense turning the ball over and over and over and over again. That's exciting. A lot more interesting than Dak Prescott throwing a couple practice interceptions.
What do you think? Here's another defensive player. No quarterback would ever say it was a good sign if the quarterback threw. So let me ask another defender, what do you think of that, Booger McFarland?
Hey, Greeny, it's just practice, man. I'm so glad that when I played, we didn't have clips of video being released because I've seen Hall of Famers get embarrassed at practice. I've seen Peyton Manning throw picks at practice. Like, this happens. This is about understanding what you can and what you cannot do, and the fact that we live in an age now where as soon as somebody throws a pick, we get a piece of video and we send it out, and now we become coaches and we got to break it down. It's just practice, man. It's not a big deal. You got to go out and do things and work on what you can and cannot do. So I would tell everybody, regardless whether Dak Prescott goes 0 for a practice throwing interceptions or he throws 30 in practice, I'm not concerned about that. It's more about the process, more about the journey. And again, I am so glad that back in '99 when I got drafted, we didn't have video because there were some embarrassing days that we've all had that we wanted no one ever, and I mean ever, Greeny, ever to see.
So I would agree. That was just a bad day, but here's the thing. Dominique said no one's really worried about Dak Prescott and these interceptions because anybody who understands Dak's career has seen that he's always protected the football, except most of what the conversation this offseason has been about from Jerry Jones, from Mike McCarthy, has literally been about we're not going to make mistakes. Like Dak is not going to throw interceptions. Like, we're going to make sure that Dak and this offense runs efficiently, and we're taking chances, but being smart as well. So I think that is a big topic of conversation in Dallas. Practice is one thing, but believe me, this is a storyline that will continue depending on how he plays come week 1. I think it is silly, but we understand. Dak Prescott is a polarizing figure.
Week 1 is against the Giants. Week 2 will be against Sauce Gardner and the Jets. So you can pencil in a couple of picks for that one, we think. But I believe if the quarterback stays healthy, Kmart, then the Dolphins are as good, let's just say it this way, as good as any team in the league.
Greeny, if I were 30 pounds lighter, I'd be way happier. Don't get it wrong, I'm really cute, but I'd be at 12 if I lost some weight. That's how I feel about the Dolphins.
Where you were going there.
I just scared.
That's how I feel about the Dolphins, though. Yes, they look great on paper. Yes, they could win a Super Bowl. But the big if their quarterback stays healthy and plays 15, 16, 17 games, if that happens, wonderful. But we just don't know. So that's why, like my weight, there's a big asterisk there. But yeah, I'm all about it. If Tua stays healthy, I 1,000% agree with Lewis.
All right, fair. Dominique, let me come to you on that, because we all understand that is the big if. I mean, Tua has not been able to stay healthy throughout his career, including college, and we know that the injury problems now are, it's the concussion problems, which is totally different than having a knee or whatever else it might be.
Right.
But if he is healthy, how good are they?
Yeah, I think that the Dolphins, just like Kimberly, are perfect just the way they are. And I think that the Dolphins will be fine, and Tua will stay healthy. He'll be good throughout the course of the season. They'll protect him. But, I mean, it's football. We don't know what's going to happen. But right now, I think the most impressive thing about them is adding Vic Fangio and what that's going to mean to their defense. Not just the schemes going into the game, but the in-game changes. And, yeah, Tua's ability to stay healthy is going to change this team. But they got some quality backups. And one thing we understand about these Shanahan disciple systems is that they can have success with backup quarterbacks. They weren't great last year with the backup quarterbacks that they had, but Skylar Thompson is good. They brought in Mike White, so I'm not sure that their season is over if they lose Tua. They might be able to stay afloat until he can come back, but the scariest part is when you're dealing with the head, it's hard to predict what's going to happen, so hopefully they can keep him healthy.
No, that's exactly right. No, Mike White obviously played well for the Jets last year. Skylar Thompson had them right in a playoff game in Buffalo last year.
Yep.
But when Tua is healthy, Booger, they were as good an offense as there is in the entire league. If he stays healthy, how good are they?
Well, Greeny, they can beat anybody if he stays healthy. From that standpoint, the offense was efficient. They can run the football. They're going to have the fastest offense in football with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and this rookie, Devin Achane, who you and I talked about at the draft. So the offense is going to be outstanding. But where I think that they can make hay, Greeny, is on the defensive side of the football, because they've always been this uber-aggressive defense, kind of boom or bust. Well, now you bring in Vic Fangio on defense, and I know Jalen Ramsey's hurt. We don't know if and when he's going to come back. But even without him, the defense is going to be really good with Vic Fangio because he doesn't give up the big plays. He can force turnovers, and they have got to get Bradley Chubb going off the edge. So while we talk about Tua, and I get it, the quarterbacks are sexy, I think their overall success is going to be determined by how well this defense can come along under Fangio. More importantly, I think their most important player outside of Tua is going to be Bradley Chubb, because they have got to get him to be what they paid him to be, which is a dominant edge rusher. Because ultimately, you got to get Mahomes, you got to get Burrow, you got to get Herbert, you got to get these guys on the ground, and you got to have a pass rush to do that.
It's amazing. That division is just so loaded from top to bottom. What can you tell us?
Kimberly Martin needed to get to the bottom of this story because the comments initially rubbed me the wrong way as somebody who knows both of these guys very well. I'm told since the first week of camp, players were complaining about Eric Bieniemy's intensity. They were saying, this guy, it's all gas nonstop. But keep in mind, this is a complete culture shock from what they're used to. Also keep in mind, this is exactly why Ron Rivera brought Eric Bieniemy to Washington to be his assistant head coach and his OC. I can also tell you that since these earlier complaints or rumblings happened, these players are buying in. The offense looks better. On Sunday and Monday, the Commanders had their best practices of training camp. They had a walkthrough yesterday. But the tempo is better. Everything looks more fluid. Guys understand. And Rivera will come out today to reporters and explain what he was trying to say. He understands that he did not phrase it properly, especially bringing up Jack Del Rio in his comments, a guy who he has defended based off of some crazy comments that he's made. And he almost he did undermine Eric Bieniemy yesterday, and that was not his intent. I'm told internally it is not an issue. Ron Rivera apologized because he said, that's not how it was intended. Bieniemy didn't take it that way. But Ron Rivera will clarify what he was trying to say.
Okay, that's exceptional reporting from you. And again, we hope to hear from the coach today. We'll turn that around as quickly as we can. That said, Booger, as you followed all this yesterday, what did you take away from it?
Well, I can understand anytime you bring in a new coach, Greeny, you're trying to change the culture. And let's face it, Washington's offense was in the bottom third of the league in points and yards, so they needed a culture shock. They needed somebody to come in and say some choice words and ruffle the feathers. My only thing about it is, if you're a player, and we've basically been terrible the last couple years, and you bring in a guy like Eric Bieniemy, a guy that's been to 5 straight AFC championship games with Kansas City, a guy that's won 2 championships with Kansas City, a guy that's coached Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, and that offense, regardless of what he's asking you to do or how he's saying it, I would do it. That's the thing that bothered me. Why were you even concerned that this guy's yelling at me? He's hurting my feelings. Like, this is not Little League. This is professional football. And as someone who played under Monty Kiffin, played under Rod Marinelli, who's an old military war guy who said so many things to me that I can't repeat on this television right now, I didn't look at how he said it. I look at what he said, because his job was to get me better. And that's why Rod is revered as one of the greatest defensive line coaches in NFL history. And Eric Bieniemy, with his prowess and his pedigree, he's on his way to being one of those type of offensive coordinators. So I was just taken aback a little bit why the players would even feel this way. They want to get better. And to me, when you coach this day and age as players that are a little younger, a little softer, I feel for Eric Bieniemy, because he's from the old school. He's trying to get his point across. And as he said, if this job doesn't get done, he's going to get fired. Yep. So I feel for Eric Bieniemy trying to do this job. And I just don't understand why these players feel bad when they get coached tough. So it really bothered me just a little bit for Eric Bieniemy's sake.
Neek, I'm trying to read your face.
I mean, training camp is for practicing and complaining. The only person who made a mistake right here is Ron Rivera. What about all this old school toughness? Keep it in-house. Isn't that something else that we did in the old school? Like, the players aren't any softer now than they were back then. When I went to training camp, we practiced really hard, and then we complained because training camp sucks. You don't see your family, and you're working all the time. Boog, let's be honest. I know that you did all the things that the coaches told you to do, and they dog cussed you and said all types of awful things to you, but when you went back to the dorms, you were around your teammates, you complained because that's what we did. But the problem in this case is, nobody went and got in front of a camera and said, you know what? Everybody's complaining. Of course we're complaining. It's training camp. It's 100 degrees and we're practicing all day and you're yelling at us. It stinks. Leave me alone. I want to complain. I'm going to show up tomorrow just like I showed up yesterday. I'm going to work hard tomorrow just like I worked hard yesterday. Just let me complain about it every now and then. Tired.
So Dominique is 100% right, because what rubbed me the wrong way is coaches are very clear about what they don't want the media to know. They don't tell us everything. So why is this something that we needed to know, especially if it's no longer an issue? Also, Eric Bieniemy, he is a lightning rod because of what has gone on. He has unfortunately become the poster child for the inequities within the NFL's hiring process. And why a man who has more Super Bowl rings than Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera, who understands how to build a winning program, who has seen a championship quarterback in the flesh more recently than Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio, why is he being talked about in a way where the rest of Ron Rivera's comments were, as a head coach, Eric doesn't understand because he kind of hasn't been there. Eric should be in that position to be a head coach. And I think that is where Ron Rivera failed in how he was talking about Eric Bieniemy.
Go ahead, Bug.
Well, here's the thing I would say is that oftentimes we get the excerpts and we don't understand the question that the coach is answering. And we want transparency. Quote. And so I would have loved to know what led Ron Rivera to even go down that road. I'm assuming, and sometimes you shouldn't do that he was asked a question about some comments, and he's just being transparent, answering the question to the reporter about what's been going on. I don't have a problem with that. To your point, Kimberly, about Eric Bieniemy, this is going to be used by some to say, okay, here's why Eric Bieniemy hasn't gotten a head coaching job because of his coaching style. And here's what I would say to you. You don't think Mike Tomlin is tough? You don't think Bill Belichick is tough? You don't think Andy Reid is tough? Like, these coaches are tough, and so I don't really look at it from that perspective as saying, okay, this is a knock against EB. Sure, it should have stayed in-house. I get that. But if the head coach is answering a question about something, I really don't have a problem with him being transparent, because if he's not transparent, we're going to say, well, he didn't tell us what we wanted to know anyway.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.